The phone call came on a Tuesday, a shrill intrusion into the normalcy of Philip's day. The voice on the other end spoke in hushed, urgent tones, each word a shard of glass piercing his heart. His son, David, was gone. Overdose. The world as Philip knew it shattered, collapsing inward upon itself. Days blurred into weeks. Grief became a shroud, heavy and suffocating. Guilt gnawed at him. Could he have done more? Should he have seen the signs? The questions echoed endlessly in the hollow chambers of his heart. He withdrew from the world, seeking solace in the silence of his home. But silence was a cruel companion. It amplified the echoes of what ifs and if onlys. Each room held a memory, each shadow a painful reminder of his loss. Sleep offered no escape, only a relentless procession of dreams, where David was always just out of reach. He would wake up each morning, his heart a leaden weight in his chest, dreading the day ahead. The world continued to spin, a cruel irony that nature remained indifferent to his pain. The sun rose and set, the stars twinkled in the night sky, and the seasons changed, all while his heart remained frozen in sorrow. Friends and family reached out, their voices filled with concern, but their words seemed distant, muffled as if separated by a thick pane of glass. Their attempts to console him felt like echoes in a vast, empty cavern, unable to reach the depths of his despair. He couldn't bear their pity, their well-intentioned but empty platitudes. Each sympathetic glance, each comforting word only served to remind him of the chasm that now existed between his past and present. He sank deeper into isolation, his days a monotonous cycle of despair. The once vibrant colors of his life had faded to a dull, lifeless gray, and the silence of his solitude was deafening. Work became a chore, a necessary distraction, but one that did little to quiet the storm raging within. Each task, each meeting was a reminder of the normalcy that had been shattered. Meals were eaten in silence, a solitary ritual devoid of any joy. The food tasted bland, the act of eating a mere necessity rather than a pleasure. He avoided the places they used to go, the park where they played catch, the ice cream shop where David always insisted on 2 scoops. These places, once filled with laughter and love, now stood as haunting reminders of what he had lost. Each place held too many memories, each one a fresh wave of pain crashing over him. The echoes of their shared moments reverberated in his mind, each one a dagger to his already wounded heart. The guilt was a relentless tormentor. It gnawed at him day and night, a constant reminder of his perceived failures. He replayed every interaction, every conversation, searching for clues he might have missed. Each memory was scrutinized, each word dissected, in a futile attempt to understand where he had gone wrong. Each time he arrived at the same agonizing conclusion: he was a father who had failed his son. The weight of this realization was a burden he carried with him, a shadow that darkened every moment of his existence. One Sunday morning, the weight of his despair felt unbearable. He found himself drawn to the church he hadn't visited in years, the one where he and his wife had taken David as a child. He couldn't explain the pull, the sudden urge to step inside, but it was a force he couldn't ignore. The familiar hymns washed over him, their melody stirring something deep within his soul. He sat in the back pew, unnoticed, his head bowed, tears stinging his eyes. As the pastor began his sermon, Philip felt a flicker of something akin to hope. The pastor spoke of loss, of grief's relentless grip, and the comfort that could be found in faith. He spoke of a God who wept with those who wept, who understood the depths of human sorrow. For the first time in weeks, Philip felt seen, understood. The pastor's words were like a balm to his wounded spirit, offering a glimmer of solace in the darkness that had enveloped him. The pastor's voice resonated through the sanctuary as he read from the book of Galatians, his words echoing off the walls and filling the hearts of the congregation. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Galatians 6, verse 2. Those words were not just ink on paper, they were a call to action, a reminder of the power of unity and compassion. The words struck a chord within Philip, resonating deeply in his soul. He had been so focused on his own pain, so lost in his own grief, that he had shut out everyone who tried to help. The weight of his sorrow had isolated him, making him feel like he was alone in his struggle. He had forgotten the power of shared burden, the strength that could be found in community. The simple act of leaning on others, of allowing them to share in his pain, seemed like a distant memory. As the sermon continued, Philip felt a shift within himself. It was as if a light had been turned on, illuminating the path he had been too blinded by grief to see. The pastor's message of hope and resilience, of finding strength in faith and the support of others, resonated deeply. It was a message that spoke to the very core of his being, reminding him of the strength that could be found in unity. He realized he didn't have to carry this burden alone. There were people around him, ready and willing to help, if only he would let them in. The service ended, and as Philip rose to leave, the pastor approached him. The look in the pastor's eyes was one of empathy and understanding, a silent acknowledgement of the pain Philip had been carrying. A look of empathy and understanding filled the pastor's eyes. It was a look that spoke volumes, offering comfort without the need for words. He placed a hand on Philip's shoulder, a simple gesture that conveyed a world of compassion. It was a touch that said, "You are not alone. We are here for you." He spoke of a grief support group that met at the church, a safe haven for those struggling with loss. It was a place where people could come together, share their stories, and find solace in the company of others who understood their pain. The thought of joining a group, of sharing his pain with strangers, filled Philip with apprehension. He had always been someone who kept his feelings to himself, never one to open up easily. He had always been a private person, his emotions held close, guarded. The idea of exposing his vulnerabilities to others was daunting. Yet, the pastor's words and the echo of Galatians 6, verse 2 lingered in his mind. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ, the verse had said. He hesitated at the door of the meeting room, his hand hovering over the doorknob. Doubts swirled within him. What if they judged him? What if they couldn't understand the depth of his loss? What if they judged him? What if they saw him as weak or overly emotional? What if they couldn't understand the depth of his loss, the unique pain that gnawed at his heart every single day? But as he stood there, paralyzed by indecision, he heard soft murmurs of conversation from inside, the gentle hum of voices sharing, comforting, and understanding. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the door. The act felt monumental, like stepping into a new world. The room was filled with a diverse group of people, young and old, their faces etched with a mixture of sadness and hope. Each person carried their own story, their own burden. He saw his own pain reflected in their eyes, a shared language of grief that transcended words. It was a silent understanding, a mutual recognition of suffering. He was welcomed with warmth and understanding. The simple gestures of a handshake or a hug spoke volumes. As he listened to their stories, their journeys through grief's labyrinth, he felt a sense of connection, a realization that he was not alone in his pain. Each story was a thread in a tapestry of shared sorrow and healing.